She's overwhelmed.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the 2026-27 Budget Committee and the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meetings to order at 5:30. Roll call. All counselors are present. Council President Miller is online virtually. Everyone else here. I'm joined tonight by our Budget Committee members, Michelle Brown, Beth Reisky, Teresa Keller, Sandy Wigg, and Joel Haugen. Should I go over the staff that is here? All department heads are here. Moving forward, we need to nominate a Budget Committee chair. Anybody want to make a nomination? Anybody interested in running tonight's meeting? It can be. Oh, not one of them, but it can be me.
Nominate Joe.
I have a motion to nominate with Joel.
Joe.
Joe.
Mayor Joe Backus.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Tonight, looking at last year's minutes, we were able to conclude at 8:36 and urban renewal then at 8:46. Rita. We did my 3 other years. We've done this all in one night, but we really stuck on task and went through this very quickly, and people provided questions ahead of time, and hopefully we can do that again tonight. So if there's items in here that we don't need to speak a bunch about, we'll keep moving on. But tonight we'd like to answer all your questions and make a recommendation to council with any changes. And then council will discuss at our next few meetings before we vote officially on accepting the budget. But looking for an approval of the minutes from May 12th, 2025.
So moved.
How to make some motion to approve minutes from May 12th, 2025. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Michelle Brown.
Okay, moving on. We are now up to the receive the budget message. City Manager Ben Bergener with city's message.
Thank you, Chair Backus. As citizens of Scappoose, Mayor Backus, City Council members, and the Budget Committee members, it is my pleasure to present to you the City of Scappooses proposed budget for fiscal year 2027. This year's budget allocates funding to accomplish many ongoing and new city projects, regular operations, and many of the City Council's adopted priorities. Fiscal year 2026 saw many accomplishments as the City Council and staff worked through large projects and continued to facilitate important conversations internally and with the public regarding the direction and future of Scappoose. One of the major ongoing conversations has been centered on the future of law enforcement in Scappoose. 2 years ago, after considering the varying options and after listening to the public, it was determined that the city will continue to focus on building an appropriately staffed and trained internal law enforcement team as opposed to contracting out the service to another agency. To succeed in this goal and to attract a competitive professional law enforcement team, the City Council and city staff have been reviewing service levels and law enforcement in the community, reviewed union contracts, and did a deep dive into the general fund to better understand what is needed in the police department, where the city can reduce expenditures, and where the city can increase resources to create a more sustainable budget to accommodate the desired law enforcement service levels in Scappoose for years to come. The city also continues conversations around parks to plan for and provide increasing park amenities, access, maintenance, and programming. Both the police and parks departments rely entirely on the general fund for the resources to provide these valuable services. A major concern for cities across Oregon continues to be the long preceding issues created by measures 5 and 50 that restrict property tax rates from increasing since the 1990s, compresses property tax in certain circumstances, and restricts a property's assessed value from growing at the same rate as real market values. Due to Measure 5 and 50, cities across the state have had to look for alternative methods to supplement funding for these important services and other general fund services, as resources have not been able to keep up with the increased expenses. Scappoose has been conservative in its budgeting, has had consistent new growth in the city and has been successful in getting grants for different projects, which has allowed the city to weather the storm longer than most cities in the state and has built a healthy fund balance in the general fund of just over $6 million. Over the past several years, it has become apparent that the issues of Measure 5 and 50 are quickly catching up with the city of Scappoose. The property taxes and the city brings in each year no longer cover the cost of law enforcement personnel at the current levels of service desired. This is important to recognize because anything spent beyond property taxes and associated police revenues on police operations takes away from the other services the city currently provides or would like to provide with other general fund resources. For example, park amenities, maintenance, economic development grants, recreation program, events, etc. The general fund continues to face an operational deficit. This means that even if the city doesn't allocate resources for projects, capital expenditures, and other variable expenditures, the city will still chip away at the fund balance each year for regular operations and will eventually deplete the general fund. This will happen more quickly when projects, capital expenditures, and other variable expenditures not covered by grants or other funding sources are planned and budgeted for. The story of the general fund is not completely bleak. There continues to be new growth and opportunities coming to Scappoose that will continue to offset some of this deficit. And there are funding strategies utilized by other Oregon communities that the city of Scappoose has not implemented to date that will increase the sustainability of the general fund. The City Council's goal 2 of their annual priorities is focused on sustainable finances for these and other services. The city will continue to discuss and monitor the general fund closely and work through the varying different strategies to provide additional sustainable funding mechanisms for the long-term prosperity of Scappoose in an effort to avoid reducing important services with as minimal fiscal impact on the community as possible. The city has continued to utilize grants to multiply the impact of city funds, reduce impact on the budget, and bring new amenities to the city. Over the past 2 years, the city pursued over $3 million worth of grants and donations for park projects. Through these efforts, the city received award notifications for $1,366,500 in grant funds and a generous donation of 1.91 acres for parkland. As the city moves forward with the final designs of these construction, the community will have received over $4 million in park improvements, with less than half of the cost coming from the city reserves. The grants described above, associated park projects, and the potential land purchase are the most notable changes in the general fund's budget for fiscal year 2026. As noted earlier, these planned projects will reduce the general fund's reserves since they are beyond the operational deficit already causing reductions. While this year will show a notable decrease in general fund reserves, these are one-time projects and the near-term future fiscal periods will not reflect an equivalent reduction without the city planning for and approving additional projects. Outside of the general fund, you will notice the city's funds are healthy and not facing concerning operational deficits. Any spending that utilizes fund reserves is due to planned projects or capital expenditures, most of which are being paid for through grants, loans, or other outside funding sources. Major ongoing projects are the Keys Reservoir, wastewater plant improvements, Miller Basalt Well, and the 50-year plan. Additionally, the city has budgeted for the design and construction of important sidewalk, stormwater, and street improvements. The overall fiscal year 2027 budget is proposed to be less than the fiscal year 2026 budget, largely due to wrapping up several large system improvements in our water and sewer departments. The city's full-time equivalent for staff will increase a few positions to 43.5 full-time equivalents, 2 of which are supported by grants and/or outside contributions. These additional positions will bring additional economic development support, public safety, and park and recreational opportunities. The city has also budgeted for a 3% cost of living adjustment. Scappoose has a bright future, both fiscally and with the many exciting projects, programming, and amenities planned for or are already underway that will further enhance the sustainability and livability of this wonderful community. I would like to thank Financial Director Carol Allner and the city department heads, the city council, and the budget committee for their tireless work already done and the work that will continue to be done in preparing for and implementing the fiscal year 2027 budget for the city of Scappoose. Sincerely, Benjamin Bergner, City Manager.
Questions as we move forward? Okay, if there's any questions on tab 4, 5, 6?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a question on tab 2, going back. I think we need to add something into the history on page 4 and 20. Where it says Scappoose was incorporated in 1921. After that, in 1925, the city was one of the 25 founding members of the League of Oregon Cities. So that's notable, you know, the fact that we were, and that population at that time was about 800 people. Yet we were one of those 25 founders of the League of Oregon Cities. And of which Manager Bergner received a noteworthy plaque for that. Big meeting in the title.
Where was that?
Page 4, halfway down, right after Scappoose was incorporated in 1921. Right before the fire in 1930, we were one of the founding members of the League of Oregon Cities. 25.
Yeah.
Got that?
So Manager Bergner received a 100-year plaque for that noteworthy event. Anyway, I think we should.
Council President Miller.
Yeah, going forward, if you guys can refer to the pages by page number instead of sections, that would be very helpful for me because I'm looking at the digital copy that does not have the tabs.
So as every page just keeps going. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I should have said on the list.
Okay, so as we make that, I agree. I'm with adding that as a founding member of League of Oregon Cities. With them daily. We had the budget message, a little bit about Scappoose, our financial policies, no changes to that. Our policies, we've stuck with the same.
It's virtually the same. I took out a few things that we just are not doing anymore. Because basically it was in the investment policy.
This is
Because
something
put
we
our money
developed
in League of
years
Oregon
ago. We
Cities.
went through and developed this as our policy kind of.
Yeah.
And that's where's that conservative policies kind of built into this. Changes. Maybe at some time we can review if needed. And then tab 6, page 35 is your general all funds combined summary, citywide financial overview. I'm going to move on to in our budget public hearing, state revenue sharing. This is where we get funding from the state for various things. I think it includes property taxes, everything, right? Or is it just the syntax stuff? Is it?
It's just the syntax stuff, the cigarette tax, the liquor tax, marijuana tax, revenue sharing tax.
Does anybody have a reason to not recommend accepting those to the council? I think that's just a formality, so
It is.
I would entertain a motion to accept state revenue sharing. Councilor Santiago move to accept state revenue sharing. It's a public hearing, so I need to open a public hearing, see if there's anybody else from the public that wishes to discuss. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And then accept the motion by Councilor Santiago to accept state revenue sharing. Any second?
Second.
Yeah. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any changes to our summary personnel services, page 40, section 7?
If we could go back, actually, page 38.
Yeah.
In section 6, it looks like we're maybe missing a row of digits in the upper part. Total expenditure, 10-year history. So it cuts off there.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'll fix that. I know the mayor mentioned something about that. I'll fix that for the final budget. I'll fix that chart. You'll find that sometimes on those 10-year charts, they're almost too big to fit on the page. I should probably screenshot them instead of putting them in as tables, but
We'll have a couple others if we see them, note them. We're missing a digit. Okay, that for good for 6. Moving on to summary personnel services, page 40. You said there's no changes. Kind of briefly looking through. Well, my question I did have, I guess, is where is Sierra listed? What position is that?
Yeah, she's the economic development specialist.
So on page 42.
On page
economic
42.
Development specialist is one of the new FTE.
Right, another one is a school resource officer. We got confirmation from the school that they put aside some money for that as well. That'll be discussed a little bit later.
Okay.
Those are the two grant funded positions.
When you mentioned a couple new FTE, those are the ones you're referring to. And we'll get into those on how they're funded and. Council President Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm looking at page 42, which is the list of parts of the City of Scappoose compensation schedule with the different classifications listed. So I just want to clarify, because in the opening budget message, it said that there were just a couple of positions. So it looks like, from what I can glean from this page, though, that there's addition of an associate planner, SRO, economic development specialist. And then it looks like, City Manager, if you can clarify this too, and maybe now's not the time, but it looks like there's potentially classification changes with the utility parks workers to utility worker.
There is,
Correct.
I can.
Oh, go ahead.
You do it? Okay. you can do
go
it. Yeah, we did make a change in the middle of this budget year to, agreed with the union that we'd split up utility parks workers and utility workers, because they really are very different jobs. The utility workers still work in the parks, but they're classified and have a different wage scale. So that's why you see the utility workers down at the bottom. And Dave, do you want to say anything more to that? I think that kind of explains it. So
No, I'm just seeing this too.
Yeah.
So,
that's right. They don't get these pages, I guess, well. But
Okay,
so it's basically reclassifying existing personnel we have.
okay, thank you for that. So for the record, can we please just get a clarification, straightforward statement about which positions are being added for this fiscal year?
We do show 4, 39.5 to 43.5. So
Right, there's the school resource officer, there's an additional patrol officer, there is the the economic development specialist, and we added a parks position. And
Okay.
Yep.
So the parks so what are the two that are funded by grants? The economic development specialist, and then are we referring to
school
the
resource officer.
Okay. All right. So the others are coming out of general fund then.
Right, the patrol officer is based off of funding. It's not we're not something we're hiring right off the bat, but due to our conversations, it's just put in the budget, but it's not something that's out for hire at this time. It's a placeholder, depending on what we're able to figure out with the potential funding strategies. And then the parks one was an adjustment of well, there's, like I said, there's a couple of classifications, so it's kind of mixed in there a little bit. They were already having utility workers come over and help with parks, and we just kind of shored that up to actually make it a parks position as opposed to a hybrid position.
but there is one additional parks utility work somewhere in those numbers. There's one additional.
there are mistakes. We've had utility threes through this whole time span. So there's errors here.
Yeah, my
That's
apologies.
why it's catching me off guard, because this isn't right.
But
There's
the
errors.
43.5 is correct, the new one going forward.
The number is correct. And Dave, last week we kept on to go through it because I don't know who's a 1, 2, and a 3. Our records. I use the records we have in the system. So
By the adoption of this,
I'll
we can
fix
get
it.
it
We'll
corrected.
fix it. We'll fix it on the 5. I'll send it out to you.
We'll get through it as we get to the budget. As far as you know, there's no additional
Oh.
workers in our
The planners
Utility.
new, totally.
No.
new.
public work.
No.
So the one definitely economic development specialist, a patrol officer, that would take our normal 12 to 13. And the SRO would then take it to 14.
No, that's where it was included. Well,
You have
yeah,
a,
did we go to 14 on that for this year? I don't remember if say it's 13, 14. Yeah, so it went to 14 as a budgeted number.
The one thing for Public Works I will note, though, is that there are classification changes. The treatment leads is a new position, but those were promotions within. So we didn't add bodies, but we did reclassify and restructure.
Do we, just curious, do we know what the net effect is on these changes? Is it less of a cost or does it go up a little bit? Because it looks like as pointed out already, the wage scale looks like it starts out a little bit higher.
For Public Works, it's a wash. I can't speak to any other department.
Okay, thank you.
With the retirement of Daryl and the restructuring, it evened out.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
But Counselor Miller, I'll point out on page 35, it does look like personnel's up about $600,000 for this year. So if you're looking at overall personnel costs.
And we'll get into those as we go through each department. Okay, we'll start tab 8, page 43, general fund. Carol, are you taking on general fund
Yes.
information?
I
Go
am.
ahead.
So, and I can go through this as much or as little as you want me to. Obviously, the general fund has not changed. It still has, the departments that you're looking at up here, the administration, police, planning, municipal court, and parks and
I
grounds.
definitely focus on really any changes you see.
Oh,
or
changes, okay.
Anything that you
Okay.
think stands out. If
The,
anybody has any questions.
some of the big things you'll see are on page 44, which has the whole general fund. I have not done this in the past, but I wanted you to be able to see the revenues and expenses all together when they're split out in the next sections. That you will notice that, there is some additional intergovernmental revenue, which we can talk about in a few minutes here. The big changes you'll see is administration has got a bump in the expenses, and that's partly due to purchase of property that Ben can talk about, and if he wants to. The police are pretty much, they're not that much, it's a couple $100,000. Now, of course, that adds a school resource officer, and I don't have a list in the revenues of how much revenue that is because it just got approved, so it's kind of brand new to us. So that, because a police officer ends up costing us approximately $160,000 with wages and benefits. And that's, half of that's paid by the school. Then obviously that's a good resource for us. But that does increase it. The increase in parks and grounds is really the spending the money we got from the grants that we got this last year. And we'll get that as we spend it. And there is the 3% bump. And keep in mind that everything that we have to spy also is going up too. And sometimes they aren't limited to the 3% that we get as our increase in taxes. So planning is really, it's down from last year because we did not buy the building that we talked about last year and got approved last year. The non-departmental transfers, that did go up, but that's a transfer to go from the general fund to the new fund, Fund 17, you'll see in your book, for the Columbia Business Alliance. Now, that is money that doesn't come out of the general fund. It's money we have received this year, because when we put the new fund in, or when we took over the agency, the first of the year, we ended up getting money in from St. Helens and from a grant. And I'm sure Lori will talk more about that. But we had to collect it into the general fund. We couldn't put it in a separate fund because then we couldn't spend it and pay for our employee who's now being funded in the general fund, but will move entirely over to the new fund next year. So I'm sorry, that was probably way more complicated than you wanted it to be, but it's the transfer. We have to transfer the money. It's whatever money we have left over. It's no money out of the general fund. It's money that we have received this year and have not spent this year that'll go over to the new fund and become their beginning fund balance. So you'll see that estimate over on their side too. Hopefully that made some sort of sense. So, okay.
So Carol, on page 44, I think you've got a typo or two.
I'm sorry?
On page 44, I think you've got a typo or two. Third line down, swim pool receives should be reserved, I think.
Yes,
And then the figure of 48,331 is not the same as later on where it talks about transferring $9,800 into the general.
Oh. Okay, you're talking about the $97,000. Yeah, this is totally separate. The swim pool reserve in a part of getting rid of the pool fund, which we're gonna spend about 10 seconds on, is part of that is there is money, and I had to work with the auditors over the last couple of years. There's money that is restricted and we cannot spend it on anything except for a pool. So that is that $48,000. We actually took that to make it more transparent this year, because in the past it was just sitting in the holding account, really doing nothing, and it had never been recognized as revenue or anything in our books. So we made that much more transparent this year, and you'll see this now pretty much forever. You know, we're trying to figure out the best way to present it in the budget, but that money is going to stay there. It's money we cannot spend. So it basically is like a
That's
restricted.
still a little bit murky because back in 2020, when we bought the Buxton property, we leveraged the pool fund to purchase that. And so.
Part of it.
Yeah, and so that's where that gets kind of muddy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because now my understanding, and I was not here then, but my understanding is we spent, when we bought Grebhorn, that we spent the money we could out of that pool fund and bought that. But there has always been this $48,000 that was restricted, so we could not spend it on.
Anyway,
Footnote, I agree. Yeah.
I think those were donations that were stipulated we could never be spent on anything else but.
Yeah, I'll make a footnote on there.
And reminder, everybody speak in the microphone so we can record it. Here,
I have a question. Real quick.
Counselor Santiago.
Can you, Carol, can you just tell us what exactly is a non-departmental transfer? I know it's cut off, but it's transfer.
Okay, a non-departmental transfer, we have two, and actually that's in the section back here
Mhm.
that I was going to talk about those, because they're listed specifically in section 14 or whatever it is. And those are, one is the transfer to Watts House. We have a $10,000 transfer to Watts House. And we have the 97,000 or whatever it turns out to be,
91,900.
to 91,700. And it's not going to end up being that. I don't know what it's going to be, because we can't predict right now how much that's going to be. It'll
Well,
be
we did
whatever's left
predict
over.
it, but-
Well, we predicted it, but we may have
Yeah.
predicted it wrong.
Sure.
That will go towards our economic development group.
The
and
economic
grant,
development
grant.
Okay.
That's what those are.
Yeah, it's titled non-departmental because it's not coming from a specific department. It's just a general fund, because it's not the police or the administration or anybody spending money over to that fund. It's just a non-department.
That could be spent doing
It's being
what?
it's just being transferred.
Transferred.
It's money that was in the general fund that's being transferred over, but it's titled weird just because of where it's coming from.
Okay, just,
Not that it's not going to a different department.
okay, thank
And
you.
we did something similar this year with Watts House when we, did work over there last year, so. Okay, and revenues really did not change that much. There's not much to talk about. If anybody has any questions, let
Do
me
you
know.
expect any of the new houses to be on this year's tax?
We do not. That doesn't mean they won't, but there may be one or two, but I bet there's not. Because they have to basically be completed in
There are a
time.
few in Dutch Canyon being lived in right now. Few.
There may be a few, but I know that from what I've heard, there won't be many.
I believe the cutoff is January
Yeah,
before it will hit the tax roll this year. That doesn't come out till October, so
so,
it's quite a delay.
So the tax increase is mostly the 3% that we can
Yes.
kind of count on. That's about it.
that's about it. Right now, that's about it. Now, on page 47, you'll see intergovernmental revenue. And there is the park grant, the balance. And then it goes down because we didn't get it or didn't spend it. So, and then it comes back up. So that's basically the park grants. So that's why that has gotten higher. And
So the $1 million grab horn grant, we put in last year, but we didn't spend it, so we moved over to this
didn't get
year.
it, yeah,
And maybe the playground grant is probably in there as well.
Yes,
which
it
will be
is.
Spent this year.
yeah, we'll receive it because those grants we get as we receive as we do the work. So since we hadn't started those projects, we did not receive any of that money. So that's why that bounces. But there's not anything else that really bounced much. The charges for service did bounce a few years ago, but that was because we did some accounting changes. And transfers are going down in the general fund. And the reason for that is Ben is really working on making things more transparent. So instead of, in the old days, there were lots of transfers that were transferred to the general fund. And then the general fund paid for things like software. You know, it's very expensive. And if you transfer the money, it comes out of the other funds, but you can't really see where it goes. Now we actually are taking those expenses and splitting them up as we get the bills. So they're in the individual funds budgets. So their budgets have gone up and the general fund has gone down because we're not paying all of those and we're not receiving the money for it. So
We have the one time in 25, a big kind of kick in the property tax with Cascade Tissues. We had a
Couple years
clawback
ago.
on some property tax, maybe 500,000 or so.
it was about
So
500,000.
that's why that one was higher, a one-time thing.
Yes,
Enterprise zone.
it's gone. So
But yeah, we'll dig into these further with
Yeah.
each department as well.
Any more questions? This on the general fund expenditures, or we get into each individual department?
I do have a question on page 43 about the $850,000 to an unappropriated ending fund balance. Funds cannot be utilized during upcoming fiscal year. Is that going to be covered in a later chapter here, or can you share a little more information? Is that money that's pre-committed to something else in 27 and 28?
you're looking at the budget notes?
She
or is
was
that-
asking what the 850
Oh,
unappropriated funds for. Unappropriated, means we just
Yeah.
don't have it appropriated
Yeah.
towards anything else. It's basically saying we will not be spending that money this year
sorry, yeah.
or future years.
But it's not
It's-
pre-committed to something else.
No, it's just, we didn't have it in our budget spend. It's, you could say it's saving for a future year. It's savings for the first part of the year. So we have, funds to pay for the different services we have until taxes come in. But it's money that's set aside for pretty much next year, not to be spent this upcoming fiscal
Yeah.
year.
My apologies. I guess it comes so logically to me because it's kind of, since we don't get taxes until November, generally we try and leave a couple of months worth of money in the general fund so that we've got money to pay until the tax money starts coming in November. So yeah, and that cannot be spent this year at all. It's locked in. So I apologize.
It's like pulling it out of savings and putting it back in your checking account.
Instead of getting a payday loan.
Can I ask a question following that, if- so when you set it aside, where do you put it to increase interest?
Well, the money sits in our LGIP where we do pretty much all our investing at this point is we use the local government investment pool, state resource, and they store it. Their interest has been actually very good. It's been over 4%.
Okay, so
and
it's
high
being
as-
invested.
Yeah, it's been
Okay,
very good interest and so it sits there and collects money
Right, okay,
every month. So
Safely, not high
Yeah,
risk
yeah.
funding, but,
Right.
I hope. Thank you.
okay. Moving on to section 9, and administration department, page 51.
that's still me. Sorry about that. So
Anything, any highlights or changes or things you think are no?
there really is not much. We don't have, we do have the one project with, we don't plan on doing any building or capital projects. There isn't anything that's really out of the ordinary. Our budget is higher because there is a $700,000 land purchase in there.
Right, as discussed with the council, that will be purchased in July. As soon as that closes, we bring that forward. So it's more earmarked to until the deal is finalized. But that would be that price range that we're looking in.
So that is the bump in that particular budget.
And again, the FTE, I mean, it's just, assistant to city manager planner, NJ's position kind of changed a little bit of where the funds come from.
Yes,
I mean, it's paid this year mostly out of this.
Right, the idea was moving it more towards recreation type things, so it'd be more out of administration compared to where it was before. So that gave a little bump there.
For payroll where it says insurance, why does it change? The 22,000 into-
insurance has gotten very, very expensive.
This goes way down.
Yeah,
This goes to
yeah.
those transfers we were talking about earlier, where they used to transfer from every department into the general fund, and then we did one lump sum payment for insurance. But now those specific insurance costs per fund, per department are spread out, so we actually know what it costs for that department, not just the total by itself. So it's more like thinking of each of these as individual businesses. How much does it cost to provide insurance in the water department? It will be in their fund as opposed to all in one lump sum here instead. So that's why it reduced here, but those will go up you'll see that in each individual fund. Those numbers will have increased.
Because we actually made that change, last year. You can see it went from like $320,000 to 18,000. And that's, I can see that, I should have highlighted and pointed that out. Because it used to be, but is what the insurance, and that's liability and property insurance for the city. Doesn't include health insurance. That's just liability and property insurance for the city. And the general fund was paying all that and then doing transfers to cover it. So, yeah, good catch. I should have pointed that out. Okay. Any other questions for the administration?
I have a question real quick.
Yes, Councilor President, go ahead.
So in regards to associating the insurance premiums to specific departments, are we doing the same thing with legal and those other professional services?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah. Legal and software, everything. We're everything we can. I think we may still have a couple little ones left, but anything that we can easily charge out to the departments. The things we are not doing are like council expenses and little bit bank fees, a couple of things that are small and would just be more wieldy to make those changes. I think we've got 3 things that we're actually having the departments transfer us the money for.
Question there, though, I don't see any legal fees in administration, so. typically
Well,
they're
it's in contractual. You don't have the,
Contract.
there is a line.
Okay.
Yes, contractual professionals, all, and
What
that
is-
includes a lot of
It
things.
says the CET school district, 96%.
Okay, that is the, the construction excise tax. That's something that when somebody builds a house, single family home, I believe it's only single family homes, that there is money that they have to pay towards that.
Mhm.
It is a straight pass through. If we get the money, we pay it through to the school district at the end of the year. If we don't get, we don't get any through the building permits, if we don't pay them anything. So, there is some this year that we will be paying. But that is a straight pass through. It's not revenue or expenses really for the general fund.
Okay, so looks like it's lower than last year minus the potential purchase. Down on it. Okay. Good, police department. 2 minutes.
No pressure.
Any questions?
Chief Llewellyn,
Such a small subject.
small percentage.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, also my fellow staff members, also the Budget Committee too as well. Before I get Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, may I hand out some documentation? Is that okay?
I will.
I'm going to pass it out to them. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Look forward to entertaining questions you might have about your police department. Just a couple of big things that you'll see in our budget that I'd like to highlight. Some of the big things are going to be the potential proposal of a drug detection canine program. That's going to be associated document you're being handed about right now by our chair. Also, to adding. Thank you, sir. Also adding a detective position and also the additional procurement of officer survival and for equipment such as body armor and things that our police department throws. Currently, right now, we have 11 officers altogether, to include myself, 3 sergeants, which takes one position takes place as lieutenant, and also 7 patrol officers. Out of 7 patrol officers, 3 are actively in training right now. So with that being said, what I just handed out here is just for the drug detection canine program to answer a couple of questions, which I'd love to entertain. This is probably one of the biggest things that'll be new to the police department. And this kind of comes from almost 2 years of going back and forth with this to see what will best benefit our community and some of the things that could possibly benefit, such as just getting drugs out of our community. Highway 30 is a big state route that's used to transfer drugs and stuff, obviously throughout our county and also Washington State, and just being more able to help prevent hopefully overdose and things that are happening in our community as Scappoose Community grows. There on the right side, if you look at the document, if you put your attention to that, these are some of the initial costs for that. The dog itself will cost roughly $14,000, but I also includes $100 worth of training. That's a one-time cost for us. And the food itself is just estimated to be roughly around $1,800 for annually. And just going down there, things such as aids to help train the dog on drugs and such that nature. But we have tried to reduce costs with the police department, but a couple things. One, we had a car that was donated by our partners at our own police department, which was great. Cost of the city, I believe, maybe at the most $1 altogether. That'll be used for a position if approved. And we also have potential resources where we can have the food be donated from a local store, Wilco. And I collect the information from Oregon Association of Canine Police Officers to get more information about how we can reduce the costs and the annual costs. And this is what I have here. You look at the very bottom of it, estimated more than likely it's going to be roughly $4,675 annually after initial startup costs. And I said that's $7,000 the high end. That will include any possible and unanticipated additional resources, equipment, and also veterinary bills that might happen. But annually, I've talked to some partners here in Columbia County. It's about $300 a month for an annual check for the veterinary cost for that. So moving on, also SRO position that was already talked about. The school, we haven't had anything official yet, but we had a conversation.
Just out of curiosity,
Yes,
where is the dog housed when it's off duty?
I'll be housed with an officer who's been
Oh, okay,
selected.
cool.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Great question. So yeah, I'll answer any questions on that and I'll continue to move on.
Well, yeah, before, are we able to, this is obviously the first time we've kind of looked at this part of it. Is there a way that if we, you okay the budget, but then we discuss this at a later time and learn more about it? Or if we recommend to the council tonight to accept this budget, is this approved? And then the council then would also approve.
So this is not in there. That where.
This is in the budget.
That's in the budget.
Yes, it's in the budget, ma'am.
Yeah.
This is just
It's not
more,
a lot. It's not $1,000.
No, estimate about 28,000, but the initial cost plus the reoccurring is 28,000.
For the first year.
Yeah, first year.
Council President Miller?
Thank you. Mayor, I do have basically the same question that you just raised, as if we do a conditional approval on the budget, if we could caveat, because I think there is a lot more discussion to be had on this, that we do have more discussion on it before we do a full approval on it. The reason is because council has spent a lot of time over the last several years trying to focus on patrol coverage and get our service levels related to patrol up. And I don't know at this point if this really complements that effort. With the training that canines take, with my experience, they take a ton of training, and that will take, again, this is what I want to learn about, is how much it'll take an officer off of patrol and going outside of our area for training activities for that canine. The other issue, just putting on the record really quick, is that when an officer or handler leaves a department for whatever reason, or they're on vacation, St. Helens had the same issue. It creates a burden for somebody else that didn't want a dog. And when you have a small workforce, you of course reduce the number of people that are willing or qualified to be able to be a canine handler. So I think that we do need to hear a little bit more about this. I support it. I just don't know that if now's the time. And so I would like to hear more from Chief Llewellyn before we give final approval on this budget item. The other thing that I'll add too is that there's a lot going on for a small department. I didn't know that we were adding a detective, so that's a new program. I would like to hear how that's going to impact the patrol coverage. But also we're adding the SRO program too, and now we want to add a canine program within the same fiscal year. That's a lot. So I would just ask that we can't give conditional approval if that's what the majority decides, but I think there needs to be further conversation on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much and for that information, Counselor. So just quick more information. So particularly for the detective position and also the canine, this is already going to be internally additional assignments from patrol officers currently in our ranks. So it's not additional new FTE when it comes down to it. So the canine position, if approved by the council and budget committee, will still be part of patrol and still be responding for call for services. But Council Miller is correct. There are certain requirements that we have to maintain proficiency for that. As for detective position, that will be once again part of one of patrol officer's additional duties. That will be set aside once we get to our patrol coverage levels. But for my priority as a chief is still make sure we have patrol officers respond to call for services during the times we currently have right now as a priority. And as we continue to move through and backfill people, to put those people out and make sure we maintain that level of coverage. And SRO position too, once again, that's going to be assigned to the schools during the school year, but there'll be an asset that will come back to the patrol level during the summertime when school is out. So that'll help facilitate that too as well. So that's kind of the quick down and dirty of how I'm looking forward going forward, sir.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to make clear that I support you and I support these efforts. I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence. We're having the right conversations about these things that can have a really significant impact. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
But yes, Councilor President Miller, to your answer your question, if we approved it in the budget, does not mean that we have to go forward at this time. It just places it in the budget so we are allowed to go forward if and when we go forward with that. Without that, it makes it hard to go forward with it if we do decide to go with it. It's much easier to plan to spend as opposed to having to do it after the budget is adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And if it is approved, would you be able just to implement without running it through city council again?
I wouldn't implement it if there was discussion requested by the council before we did that. That would not be a wise move on my part. So,
and I would say that for our police department, this is going to be a community thing, and really that's what it comes back to. So, I like the community to be provisional on board. This will be the first asset I think in Columbia County. The other two dogs that are in the county are apprehension dogs, one that tracks down criminals who are on a run or people who are supposed to be on arrest. This will be focused on drug detection, getting out of our community, and also with the hopeful goal too to also help Columbia County Sheriff's Office by doing additional checks or contraband within their jail system. So I think it'll have a very positive impact for the whole entire community, just not Scappoose if deployed correctly. But appreciate your looking at this, and like I said, I'm glad for the communication and dialogue.
This is probably a good time for us to talk about, we'd like to also add $400,000, just under that. I know it's a terrible time to ask, right? But it's 399 or whatever, for if we get the grant for radios, we're going to need to spend it. And that was not in here.
Now buying new radios.
right, yeah, I'll give a little context. So just over the last week after we submitted these budget documents, we were notified of a grant that Council President Miller is working with Chief and some other agencies to get some additional radios and other things. So we were notified last week that we were on the top of the list. There's some things that we still need to move forward with. But with that, we didn't have it in the budget plan for a number. Since we got that, we can add it in this meeting. We couldn't add it in the next council meeting. So once again, it's a lot easier to get it in the budget ahead of time. It would be a grant with associated expense, so it doesn't really change anything we're doing with our general fund monies. It's just adding it to the budget
So we'll be adding $400,000 worth of
revenue.
revenue and $400,000 worth of capital expense. So it's
But
basically, a
Brian,
wash.
there's a couple other agencies that get part of that as well. Or is it 400 isn't just Scappoose? It's
Yes,
some other-
I'm pretty sure that the money would come to Scappoose and then we would distribute the resources out. So it would have to come here and then it would be it. I don't know the specifics. It'd be best just to plan for that. And if it ended up less, that'd be great. We just want to make sure it's easy.
It's two other cities, Rainier and Columbia City.
Right.
Organizations.
Ultimately, 399 will come in and then go out. But you're gonna put it in here then?
We'd like to add it. We'd like to add that. So, and that will come out. I'll send out new sheets and everything for people.
Right. So that'd be added 400,000 in expense, 400,000 in revenue, and it'd just be a wash. Because it'd be a
We,
grant.
nothing out of, from us, additional?
Council, was there any match on our side that was required? I didn't see.
No, there's no match, and this is a reimbursement grant too. So we will write the first check, and then we submit the invoices to Oregon Criminal Justice Commission, and they reimburse us fully for the expenses up to the allowed amount, which is right now pending at $399,804. And they do that within 30 days.
That's, congratulations. That's a really good grant to get us even if it's 200,000 for us, I mean, we'll go buy $200,000 worth of great.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Money.
Exciting news. We should
need and
adjust it.
But you don't have anywhere on here radios already in the
No,
budget.
it's not
or
anywhere in
equipment or
here.
anything.
No,
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about it until like yesterday, like today.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have been able to do this in this, fiscal year or anything to do with replacement radios without this grant. So now that we were notified that we are place number one right now, now it is an issue to put in there.
And so we keep talking about level of service with the police department. We're going to continue to talk about that as we go on for the
Right.
next couple of months. So, as a budget, we've got placeholders in here and looking at this funding. And I agree with what you have in here. We're forward and, but we're going to continue to talk about funding, other funding
Right.
sources for the police that we have.
Carol, I have a quick question. I don't see fuel code 206 being used for the police. How are they tracking their fuel?
That's under vehicle maintenance, I believe,
Yeah, he
for us, Dave, but it's in there though.
He
I-
approves it every month.
Yeah, it's in there. Trust me. Check it.
You want to increase that a little with, price of the gas?
Time will tell.
Good thing we have a stop.
We're going to
Couple electric bikes for patrol.
We're going to Alexa.
I like that.
Okay, any more questions?
Go back to
Sure, we'll
horses.
speak to you again in a minute. Moving on to Parks Department, page 57. Ready?
All right.
Sabine?
That'd be me.
Good.
Thank you, Chair, Council, Budget Committee. Talking some parks right now. Go ahead and start off with the operational budget of $3,777,230. Of that, personnel, $414,500. Materials and services, $249,305, with $2,925 for transfers. Capital outlay, $3,110,500. As mentioned in the budget message and by the chair, Mr. Mayor. 3 of these line items for this are grant driven. One is the one that we budgeted for last year, the Smith Road Veterans Park Extension is in there. We received a grant for an ADA playground for Veterans Park. That one just went through the RFPs. We received some bids and we awarded Bjork to do the constructing, which should happen in the next fiscal year. The third one is the bridge from Veterans to Comcomly. We received a 50% total cost grant for that. That includes the design for that bridge as well. $100,000 for miscellaneous park improvements. This is just for things that either staff and or council recommends, and they go through the council process throughout the year that can come up. And then just equipment grades for any type of emergencies that come up throughout the year.
Does that 100,000 cover like the disc golf?
Covers a disc golf, if Meisner property. I know there's some municipal code issues with that, but that's what that stuff's allocated for.
You did ask about that at Earth Day. Oh. When will we start building the park?
Yeah, we had a very clear discussion when that all transpired that the EJ Smith parcel would be developed first and a few other things that were already in the queue. So he is aware that it'd be a couple of years out, but.
I have a question. Are we looking at some of the development codes, though, that may lower the bar for some of the infrastructure and upgrades that are necessary when city parks are being developed?
We don't have any proposed changes at this time. The snag we were running into was, well, number one, typically, you do frontage improvements at the time of development. That would be a really heavy lift for this project when, the intent really is initially to try and get it up and running and usable, putting in a small kind of parking lot area. But like our code does require that parking lots are paved. The other thing was potentially doing just like a porta potty initially until we have funding to do a full standalone structure. Our code kind of really, the municipal code in terms of porta potties is more about like for events or for short-term use, not for long-term use. And so my thought really on that one was just for that particular issue, it would be a pretty quick fix to kind of clarify it could be used for underutilized parks or spaces like that. But it's something to look at for sure. But it's not been, for 50-year plan is top to get through right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have had discussions about it. It's just
Yeah.
trying to get these
It's
backlog of 50-year plan updates done before she can move to the next set of updates we'd like to
Right.
get moving on, so.
So it's not the intent to package all of the changes into one effort? So this wouldn't be.
Yeah, and those were held for 3 years, and so that's coming forward as one package. I did count, we are touching and amending 36 chapters out of 54 of the development code. It's a huge undertaking, so we've got to get that done first. We have talked about some interim type stuff we could do to get something going at that park, but again, to Dave's point, like we have grant funding that has deadlines. We're trying to get that work done first, knowing we would love to use that parcel because it's treed and beautiful. So
Are you able to build trails in there, mark dust trails without a parking lot?
You can, but our biggest concern right now is some sort of a restroom. If
We okay
people are there
doing
too
that?
long, they're gonna have needs, and then if
Yeah.
you don't have facilities, we're gonna have things we don't want. So.
Are we okay having the porta potty at Chapman Landing because it's county property? County?
That's right. It meets the zoning requirements there, yes.
So yeah, we'll continue to look at that as in the discussions.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for Doug. Under the 242 dues, fees and subscriptions. I know it's only 10,000, but it is 3 times what it was last year. What are the dues and subscriptions and
You want me
fees
to
that
cover
went up?
that? You want me to take that?
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's a part of the money coming out of
I noticed.
the general fund to the individual funds. The
Administrative.
administration stuff,
Right.
that has come,
I think it
you know,
was
there-
Springbrook.
it's
Dunes.
Springbrook, that's a big thing, the
So it's
software.
not an increase, it's coming, from
It's-
some used to go into
Yes.
another.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so it went to other things. And insurance wasn't in there in the past, so it's got, the insurance also is a big cost that went down to the individual departments, just for transparency's sake, so.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, great jobs with parks. Again, we're talking level of service there, so as we can find additional funding sources, we'll be able to adjust and build some more parks. Municipal Court Department, page 61.
There's not a lot to say about municipal court. I told the chief I wouldn't make him do this because court really falls more on administration. It's, we always hope we get $100,000 worth of revenue from fines. Never happens, but it hasn't, at least since I've been here. So you can kind of see that, we budget for it, but it's not there. The court does pay for half an employee plus a little bit of administration. And, they have, costs, they have to pay money through, that's what their materials and services is. They have to pay money through to the state, and so they're collecting money for other things. Really, there isn't a lot that's changed. Obviously, we've got attorney fees. That's the big cost for municipal court, is the judge and the attorneys, the defense attorney and our prosecuting attorney. That's the big cost for court.
Well, it looks like the payroll costs went from 54,000 about in 24-25 up to 133,000. Is that another one of these transfers from general?
Transfers from jet,
Yeah.
partly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now they're in the general fund, so if we get money from court or part of our salaries go to court, we tried to take part of everything. I don't think the general manager, that Ben has, had anything going to court in the past. So we're trying to make these kind of even them out to where things seem to fit, so.
Does the code enforcement come in here at all? That's
Not in
court fees for speeding tickets, those type of things.
They're entirely,
They're
unless you write the ticket and we get revenue from it, but I don't think they've been doing things that way, so.
So yes, we have code enforcement violation. There have been tickets going through the process and described.
So they will get some.
That would come.
That would come
Yes.
faster, yeah.
That's a good thing, so. I didn't realize that, so.
Obviously, our first thing is to enforce and to communicate and get them to change and do stuff, but ultimately there's violations. Okay. We good? Moving on. Number 13, page 64, planning department.
Planning department. Yes, yes. Thank you, Mayor. So let's see, no very big changes this year, but you'll see overall from the 2025 to 2026 to this next year, the total expenditures have dropped roughly in half. Again, that's reflective of the fact that we did not purchase the building on East Columbia. Aside from that, we don't have any big changes. This year, we will be focusing on completion of the 50-year plan. I will also serve on the project management team for the transportation system plan update and the Scappoose to St. Helens Trail project, as well as supporting the entrepreneurship programs we'll be talking about at the new Economic Development Fund in a little bit. We will be, let's see, we can go through here. The budget amount from the general fund department is $958,216. We anticipate revenue of $113,000 this year. Personnel services costs are budgeted at $628,605. Material and services costs are estimated at $283,036. And capital outlays budgeted at $43,650,000. And there will be a transfer to the administration department of $2,925. For the completion of the 50-year plan, I did include 15,000 in contingency in case there is no way to know as we're heading into adoption hearings, how many hearings that's going to take. It's a complete unknown. So we have estimates of what we think that could look like, but we don't know. So I figured it would be best to put a little contingency in there in case we needed. Of course, we'd come back to council to make that change if we needed to.
What
Prior.
is your rough guesstimate of when will those start month-wise?
Yep. So no, they are going to start, the planning commission hearing is going to be scheduled for June 25th. Council, if everything goes well, council's hearing would be scheduled for July 20th. It's going to be a very large binder for you all. I apologize ahead of time. Working on putting those staff reports together through this month and June. So yeah, happy to answer any questions. Again, I did notice the dues went up, like had to go back in and look. And again, that's just the stuff being parsed out to the individual departments.
On this, you skip 25, 26.
Yeah.
It goes from 23.
Yes, I will fix that. There's also a an error in your copy for the community development director. Those wages are wrong. So, but I will fix that.
Update already.
Yeah. That's what I get for copying stuff.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, I'm seeing health insurance jumped quite a bit. Again, that's just across the board, but generally speaking, costs are pretty similar to what they've been in the past.
Lori,
Yes.
you know, I would like to see a line item for a comprehensive watershed study that eventually, because we need that.
I think that actually would come from stormwater fund. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Number 14, go
I do
ahead.
have a quick question. In terms of the revenue, the planning development fees and the infrastructure inspection and planning fees, so we're anticipating that to be lower this
Yeah.
year. Why
Yeah.
would that be?
It's always interesting for us to kind of sit down, put our heads together at CDC and figure out what projects we think will actually write their check in this upcoming fiscal year. It's really hard when they kind of span years. We're not sure exactly when they're going to go, but based on what we're seeing, there's not a lot kind of in the pipeline coming through. So we do expect revenues for this upcoming fiscal year will be lower than they have been, say in the last few years, just because we're not seeing the projects like coming in. There was a lot of housing the last few years, so it was kind of up for infrastructure inspection fees.
So those all three are already done through the,
Yeah, so they've already made their payments. That's correct.
Okay.
So it very well could be higher than this, but we're just not seeing stuff that's like definitely going to go next year.
Great. And then in terms of the 50-year plan,
Yes.
so you'll be kind of making the case to the county. If there were to be an appeal at all and that incurred more consultation fees and that, when would that come? Like, do we need to be accounting potentially for any sort of?
That's a good point. I do not have any type of, I mean, I do have a healthy, kind of amount for attorney fees that I just carry normally. Well, I'm carrying more than I would typically just because we're going through this process. But it would come out of a contractual professional line item should we have to, spend more on attorney's fees going through that process. That's where it would come out of. But I have not kind of padded the budget, if you will, to account for that.
Okay.
The UGB expansion should not be very contentious. I mean, it's not farm forest land, it's straightforward, it's residential, so I don't anticipate that, but you never know.
But if there was an extreme event, our general fund does have a $1.1 million contingency in there. So we could pull and make that happen if needed for any unforeseen big event.
Okay. Now on to 14, right? General fund non-departmental, page 67.
Kind of already discussed a
Yeah.
lot of this. This is basically things that don't fit into any of the standard departments. So it includes those couple of transfers, one to Economic Development Agency and to the Watts House for their porch work. And then the contingency and the unappropriated fund balance, are both in here in this line. And then we also put the swim pool reserve there because it's still there. You add it in, you got to take it back out. So,
And that transfer to Economic Development Agency was basically funded by a grant.
yes, yeah, that's not city money.
Get more into that, I'm sure. Okay. Number 15, page 68, law enforcement assessment fund.
Okay, I told Chief I do this one too. So, okay, this fund was set up to basically track funds that come through ticket revenue and are transferred to the law enforcement fund so that the police have money to help pay for some of their, things that they do on a regular basis, like Donut Day and National Night Out and Earth Day, and that fund has not had a lot of money because we haven't had a lot of ticket revenue. So that, there is a certain amount of ticket revenue that's assigned, that's earmarked for this law enforcement, criminal justice fees and police fees. And the idea originally was that they would be able to buy cars and stuff with this. It's never been that way for at least as long as I can see. So it's just kind of there as funds that are available without hitting the regular police budget, to do these events that the chief works so hard on. Always cooks, right? So, but you can talk more about that. But then we noticed that, like Ben caught me and he says, okay, you're spending more money than you're getting in. And so obviously you can see the reserves going down. So we're probably gonna have to talk to Timmy Sue and say, we have to kind of back off a little bit on what we're spending. But, because this is the amount of money they've got and they can't go over that for the year. So,
Typically though, like Earth Day, all the food was donated.
yeah,
So this pays for pays some salary.
it does not pay any salaries. It's just but there are trinkets and stuff.
So just the same thing like when the city council has it or your booths, just those little gifts we get out to our community, which show
Right.
the stickers and stuff like that. So those type of things.
So,
Council President Miller.
Carol, do you happen to know what this fund looked like prior to 23-24?
I could send you a history. Well, let's see. I have a 10-year history in here. Let's see. I got it down to back to 15, 16. And it really is, I don't have the revenue back there. I can get you the revenue for that amount. I can get you the 10-year revenue if you'd like.
Right, and you can see the cash carryover though, starting back in
Yeah.
15, 16, it's been going down steadily over the last 10
Yeah.
years.
Okay,
So
yeah, I'm
you're
just
right.
curious of the trends. So we're last maybe 10 years with this fund. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Watts House, page 70, 16.
Well, that'll be me.
Is that,
Yeah.
is that Dave?
Yeah.
Is that you? Or is
Yeah,
that
Doug's
Dave?
gonna take this one. I'll take this one, yeah. Watts House, total, working capital carryover is $24,405 with, again, as mentioned, $10,000 of a transfer, and $900 of interest will bring it to $35,305 for the year. Pretty much for this fund, as mentioned, is a new railing for the house, coming out of capital outlay, and then typical maintenance and organ from the materials and services. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Question? Moving on. Did you say the mayor should live in Watts House?
I heard that.
As long as you get along with the Grinch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, that might change. Number 17, Ag Fund 61, page 73.
And I'm going to talk for about 2 minutes on this, right? PEG fee fund was something that Comcast was paying us special funds in addition to their franchise fees up until the end of 2025. So we haven't gotten anything since their report for 2025. And they don't, it's not in their new franchise agreement. So they will be going away. This did pay for the website, paid for, basically communication things. So that is no longer there. We're basically running it down and probably spending the rest of the money this year. And it's going to go away and become like the swim pool fund. It'll eventually drop off. I got to keep it on for 3 years. So it just was not negotiated out, and, we're going to spend the money, and the plan is to spend it all this year. And I suspect that will happen this fiscal year.
Keep it going. They required like a channel. You had to do your own public channel. Spend so much time on TV, and we don't have that
The funds to do that, so,
capability.
and it wasn't going to fund it all,
Yeah.
So.
Number 18, page 75, Building Fund 13.
All righty. So let's see, the building department estimates around 50 new home permits could be issued this year. In addition, we anticipate one new commercial building will be issued a permit to begin construction. That would be the new Wana branch. The building fund begins the year with a starting position of $135,968. Permit revenue and miscellaneous fees are anticipated to be $286,000. Total fund resources are expected to be $421,968. Personnel service costs are budgeted at $114,500. Materials and services are estimated at $244,441. And there will be a transfer to the general fund of $2,925. And then that does leave us with a contingency of $60,102. This fund is separate from the general fund. It is self-sustaining usually. A few years back, there was a transfer from the general fund to cover it, but there has been quite a bit of permit revenue the last few years from the subdivisions under construction.
And they paid us back.
And we paid.
I want you to know, the building fund paid the general fund back.
Right.
Last year.
With
So,
interest? With interest?
no interest.
Other than I
The
had interest in them paying us back.
the storage units, does that development have permits and stuff? Are we anticipating new storage unit?
We anticipated that it would be this fiscal year.
All that permit stuff was in that last year. And I hope our office administrator and city manager don't start with a negative salary. I mean,
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, whoops.
Okay.
Thank you.
so then, yeah, keep it.
I worked so hard on all of the numbers
I know.
to make
know.
sure everything matched and the rest of it.
Sure you.
Personnel suffered, I'm sorry.
Test us to see if we're reading.
Yeah.
them. Okay, on to the brand new one, tab 19, Economic Development Fund 17, page 78.
Okay. So the Economic Development Department is a newly formed department within the city of Scappoose, which implements the Columbia Business Alliance, CBA for short, that is housed within the Community Development Center. So the CBA is serving as a community-wide, I should say a county-wide business community. Gosh, I really messed that one up. It's dedicated to strengthening Columbia County's existing business ecosystem, as well as recognizing and supporting entrepreneurs. So for this year, The 4 focus areas are serving as Columbia County's business resource hub, providing accessible business education, business ecosystem development, business promotion, and implementation of buy local campaigns. So I'll just pause. There were some questions submitted, kind of just more to get an understanding of funding for this new department. So with the dissolution of Columbia Economic Team, there were some programs that were essentially going to go away in the community unless there was a way to have someone house those grants and really combine 2 of them particularly together in order to fund one full-time position in its entirety. So what transferred to the city is the Ford Family Foundation GROW grant. That is $100,000 max grant amount, and we had transferred to us $93,598. That GROW grant actually is the city of St. Helens is the grant recipient. The city of St. Helens contracted with Scappoose in order to implement and run that program. This does, between the Ford Family Foundation grant and then the other grant that transferred to us was a Business Oregon Rural Opportunities Initiative grant. Between those 2 is what is funding the new position, Economic Development Specialist. The Business Oregon ROI grant was for $105,000. And I guess back to the Ford Family Foundation, let me answer the remaining questions. There is no match. There is no match for either of the grants. The Ford Family Foundation GROW grant runs on a calendar year. This current grant will run through the end of this calendar year, so till December 2026. The city can apply for 2 additional rounds of that grant at $100,000 each, so for 2027 and 2028. The key deliverables for that grant, one-on-one navigation support. So that's connecting business owners or entrepreneurs to resources within the greater community. Leadership team engagement, co-starter programming. This is boot camps for new business owners or for people wanting to start a business. We have our first co-starter boot camp coming up on May 29th and 30th. This also funds the Munch and Learn classes that Sierra will be putting on throughout the county. This adds one more resource corner to a local library. Scappoose is the target this year. It essentially purchases books around entrepreneurship, starting a business, business support, and outfits sort of a little area in each of the community libraries. Also, a small business appreciation event. That is tomorrow morning, actually, at the John Gum Building. So hopefully you saw that advertisement in the community and signed up if you'd like to be there. And then the Business Oregon grant, that again, $105,000, that goes from January through the following June, so it's roughly 18 months. We can apply for 3 more rounds of that. We are currently in stage 2 of the cycle. It's meant to be reallocated and re-upped as long as you're doing good projects and Business Oregon sees the work you're doing. They do like these to continue on. Stage 2, we can ask for between 70 and 120,000. There's one more round of that. And then stage 3, which is really capitalizing on all the work you've done in the first few stages, you can ask for between 100,000 and 175,000. Again, there's 2 more rounds of that, which would take us out through June of 2023 for that 3rd round. The key 2033, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, 10 years off. The key deliverables for that project is the BRE project continuance. That's the business retention and expansion project. The focus areas, which were identified by the business community a few years back during a series of interviews that we did, workforce development, regulatory clarity, communication, and revitalization. So Sierra and I will be convening groups around those topics and moving those projects forward. It also pays for hiring a consultant to map the local regulatory process, and that's part of the regulations action team. Again, there's been some questions about sort of the capacity to run this by one person, but what I'll say to that is that Sierra was running or very much involved in most of these projects before, so this is really a continuation of the work she's done in the past. There's also additional funding that comes in to this department from contributions from other local governments and agencies. And so that additional funding, once that starts coming in, could also cover the one-on-one business coaching, which is a small business resource center was offering before. The grants do not cover that. There was a USDA grant that was covering that work before. That being a federal grant, it was not transferable to the city. So for now, the one-on-one business coaching is not funded. There are resources available through some of the chambers for some of that work, but we really would like to bring that back locally. And so as we get, sort of those contributions from agencies and local businesses, the one-on-one business coaching is as a contract work that we have certain folks who did that work before. We would like to contract with them again. They are still in the community and available. So that's something where if the money comes in, we'll spend it and we'll hire and pay those contractors to do that work. If the money does not come in, then we'll wait. So, but again, this is money separate from general fund or City of Scappoose money. These are grant funds. This is going to be run as a self-sustaining department, essentially.
So like the funds that we get from the other cities or agencies, is that under the economic development revenue?
Correct. That's correct.
And the GROW fund, which is the Fort Family Foundation, you have to, I think they've already applied before for second round and were given it. So we would hope that when they apply, we'll say Helen's apply in next year again, and we would subcontract for them, or going forward, we apply.
That's a good question.
It could go either way. We've talked with St. Helens and the Ford Family Foundation, and when it comes down to the reapplication, it's just going to be whatever's best for the Ford Family Foundation. But either city, I mean, we're all working together on this. This is a countywide, so we meet regularly with the other city managers, administrators, the PUD, and there's a lot of coordination that goes along this and a lot of people involved. But whatever is most beneficial for the application process, the route will go once it comes around to that.
I think it's all good because before, I think too, the GROW is really focused more St. Helens.
Right.
Now it opens up to the whole county. Council President Miller.
Thank you. I just have a quick clarification for Lori. Lori, when you said that there's no match, do you mean that the grant doesn't require a match, or we don't have the match?
No, there's no grant match required.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I think the last part of the conversation there in the room kind of clarified my next question, but just to throw it out there, when we apply for the grants to fund this economic development program that we're discussing right now, are all the other cities collaborating and in that grant application saying this is going to benefit all the cities, and that is perhaps a consideration on us getting those grants?
Yeah, for sure, Tyler. And just by the nature of the work that I had mentioned, or the deliverables for each grant, it is to build that ecosystem across the county. This is a county-wide effort, so absolutely.
Where I'm going with this is trying to connect the dots in between those different municipalities' contributions to this program, and basically establishing here on the record that our success with obtaining those grants to fund this program is because all of those other municipalities are contributing to that grant application.
Right. And I would also add to the success of this program is contingent on us providing a service that they want to continue with in the future as well. So we'd have, it's a shared responsibility to both collaborate both ways with our partners and for them to work with us to provide a service that benefits both Scappoose and the county in a way that we want to continue and they want to continue to contribute.
To clarify, Tyler, I'm not sure to what extent the other communities were like part of the grant application so much as they probably wrote letters of support
Correct.
towards that grant. But I don't know that they were co-applicants, just full transparency.
Okay, let me ask in a different way then. So if we were to apply and run, so right now, the way this is designed is to help other areas outside of Scappoose. Could we apply for that grant and have that position focused 100% on Scappoose? Or do you think that that wouldn't work because the success of getting those grants is based on us helping all the other neighboring cities?
Yeah.
What are they, my thing is what, sorry, Ben, what are they contributing to this? And do we anticipate getting anything from those other municipalities that we're assisting?
Couple things there. First of all, the grant funding can do all of this work and the deliverables I just mentioned without contributions from the cities. What the contributions from the cities add to the pot, if you will, is that we could then do this one-on-one business coaching and could put on potentially, additional trainings beyond the grant funded trainings for different business resource trainings. So the grant funding covers Sierra 100% and covers these deliverables, but there are additional services we would like to be able to offer, like the one-on-one business coaching that does not happen unless we get those additional contributions. In terms of could we apply for these grants and keep that money in-house just to serve Scappoose? My sense is that the way, and full transparency, I'm still coming up to speed on these grants. I didn't write them, so I don't know all the rules and regulations, but based on what I'm seeing and kind of what the mission and the things I'm learning is that it really is focused on this business ecosystem building, and I don't know that Scappoose by itself would lend to kind of the lens that they're, the way that they're seeing this and approaching it. And Ben, I don't know if you have more to add to that.
Yeah, I would say that the grants were initially given for Business Oregon because it was benefiting the county so the ROI was a county-wide initiative, and it is for the ecosystem. The Grow Greater grant was originally for St. Helens and went to St. Helens, Greater St. Helens area, and then our proposal was to make it county-wide. These specific grants, yeah, I would say it would be pretty hard to refocus those back to Scappoose only because of how they were initiated. And Grow is actually a very specific program that is not everywhere. There's only 3 or 4 other communities in the state, and it's for similar things. So the fact that we, when advocated for these, was with the position that we would be offering it both in Scappoose and the rest of the county. And that also, to that point, is the future beyond the grants. They do have a limit on those grants. If we want to continue having these economic development services, it is important that we build those relationships with our county partners so that we can still have a funding source to keep this department going. Without that, it doesn't just take away from the county, but it takes away from Scappoose as well, because we wouldn't be receiving it either.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to capture the contribution that those other municipalities are giving through basically an indirect method.
Can I've been hearing they are and they will. So I'm just clarify when the agencies and departments and PUD and all that they were contributing or fund, even Scappoose was giving money to
Yes.
CET. Are they, you're currently collecting the funds that CET was collecting from these public agencies, or you're thinking they will?
It is budgeted to, we've had conversations with the counties and other partners. Not all of them are gonna come across and we've anticipated as such. But some of those because CET also served business recruitment, which we're not doing countywide. So there are some that have more of a focus on that. But contribution came from cities, it came from businesses, it came from PUD and other, there's a lot of resources or sources it came from. So those who have a vested interest still, we've had those conversations with. Some are wait and see. But we have anticipated as such in our budget that we want to get these programs to show. A lot of the people in the county are like, it's in Scappoose. Are you guys gonna steal it all? Or are you actually gonna help the county? Are you gonna actually be able to deliver this stuff? Luckily, the grants allow us that time, before us the time to actually show that we can do this at a place that helps both Scappoose and the county. And then as that trust grows, we'll gain back some of those who are not willing to contribute at this time.
To answer your question
Yeah.
though, is we have made the pitch to councils, to PUD, to different agencies. They are taking it under advisement. They are putting it in their budgets. And then once we find out what, went into their budget, then in July, we would invoice them for whatever their contribution is, and then that money would come in. So no, it has not been collected. We are hoping for 120,000 in contributions, which was similar to what CET was collecting. 12,000 of that is City of Scappoose contribution, just like we did before. But we won't know until come July when they actually start cutting checks. And that's that lever where if it doesn't come in, we don't spend it on the one-on-one business coaching, right? We can't spend it if it doesn't come in. So,
Okay, so we didn't have a budget for this year.
obviously this
Yeah.
fiscal year, because we didn't know this
Right.
was happening.
Right.
Next fiscal year, I'm assuming 120 comes in. I don't know that we'll get that full amount. But if we don't spend it. If we do, we have more services to offer.
Are you also contributing probably the revenue of either charging for classes or partly, or
So the grants are covering the classes, the
Mhm.
cost of the classes,
Right.
and the food and the, extras and all the stuff. We have toyed with, and I think in the future there will be some nominal costs because it does show a value when you do that.
Yep.
So I think initially we want to be out there. We want to be in the communities. We want to show that we have services. We know a lot of businesses are struggling right now, so we feel like it's really worth it to, especially, the grants are covering it, right? So in the future, there will probably be more discussion around some charge for services.
And one point of additional clarification, this is still really new. Our official launch is tomorrow at the John Gunn Building. So there's still a lot of discussions going on. We've met with a lot of the city managers, the city administrators, the executive directors, met with some councils, but there's still more conversations that we're working through as we're trying to rope down what it's going to look like specifically. That's why we give ourselves enough leeway for what we plan, with some room that if it doesn't happen, we're fine. There's a lot of unknowns from outside partners wanting to see what's going to happen and how it's going to work. So it's still a work in progress, but because we're able to rope those grants together, it gives us that room to work through it and to make it happen. The other reason nothing's coming from until next year is everybody already contributed to CET.
Right.
So they're waiting until the new fiscal year before they're willing to contribute again to anything. So
And
there
a
is
lot,
that delay.
a lot of the issues CET had was questions of how to charge people for one-on-one advising or this help. And it was really hard. We couldn't even come up with a plan, a way to fund them for so many hours, and different levels of sponsorship. It was tough. But I do think, like with the GROW through CET, GROW is really St. Helens specific. So we have an economic development committee, now that we saw a grant that would really help us, or a program would really help us. specifically, I think I would hope they would have the ability to go after some other grants too, and additional.
Right, and the Grow program is really exciting for all of our businesses in the county and in Scappoose because they have grants that are under 3%, or
Loan.
they're low.
Yeah.
Sorry, loans for 3% for up to 50,000, and then we have a Kiva loan that's 0% for 15. So there's access to capital at a really inexpensive rate that we get for our businesses as well as the countywide that were not there before. That should help. And that's what, to me, one of the biggest things I'm excited to get out there and make sure businesses are aware of. So if they want to grow or start, there's some access to capital at a really inexpensive way and support to make it happen.
But if going forward too, if you have a French aerospace company come in, CET is no longer there, but now it's us. They can go through Business Oregon and us, and we still have that ability to go after those businesses.
Yeah, no, Business Oregon through their prospector works with each individual city at this point, and then we'll work with those wherever those aerospace companies or whatever company may be would be interested in going to. So they work with whatever area with those businesses and the city managers. So.
I think that will help us. Did we take a break last year? I mean, it's online and recorded, but can we take a break since we're about halfway done?
The mayor needs a break.
No, I'm good, but try to see, is there a good one to take a break after about an hour and a half in?
26.
Let's just go. Let's give me a couple more. Let's get to the SDCs. Let's get through these real quick. Street Fund 20, page 80. I'd like to continue, I guess.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Bear with me because you'll have me for the next 5, so maybe we can just run through
Yeah,
that and then you
let's
take
do
a break. Street fund, so always an interesting topic. When I started here 9 years ago, this fund was in dire straits, and with some careful work and strategy, we've turned it around, and now it's actually a very healthy fund, and we're excited because there's some big capital projects on the horizon for it. So I'll run through the revenues real quick. The street fund receives its revenues from multiple sources. We receive the state gas tax, which is based on revenues collected, distributed between cities, the state, and the counties. And then per capita, we get a certain percentage. We've been hovering around the 650,000 mark. This year was projected for 654,047, which is $7,900 higher than last year. Our local fuel tax brings in very consistently $250,000 within a few bucks every year. And then we also receive federal fuel tax that goes through the exchange program, which has to be identified for capital projects. We're bringing in 103,000 on that. It's been just slowly, incrementally going up every year, a couple $1,000s. I think my first year here was like 72 or 78,000. So slow increases. With the fund being healthy, interest is up. We're projecting that at 85,000 for the year, which is 25,000 more than last year. And credits back to those interest rates that Carol was referring to earlier. That's been very beneficial for the city. The working capital carryover was $3,367,105 for the year, giving a total resources of $4,459,152. Personal services for the year is projected at $270,700, which is down almost $29,000. Over the years, we've been learning what our staff is doing and adjusting our budgets accordingly to right size them to where the workforce is being used. Materials and services is at $275,586, which is up $46,000 this year, mostly because material costs for us. That covers the striping materials, crosswalk things, signs, etc. We're going to be doing a lot of that work this year as soon as the temperatures warm up. And then capital projects for the year, we've got a paving project out to bid right now, which is going to do 4 blocks of this region of town. We're going to be doing part of Elm Street, 3rd from Columbia down to Elm, and then Oak and Myrtle will be getting paved as well. So we're excited for that. We're estimating that project to be somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000. With oil prices up, that does impact asphalt costs. So we're going to wait and see what the numbers look like there. And then we're also excited to kick off the design of the Vine Street project, which is all of the sidewalks that we promoted when we moved forward with the local fuel tax that we wanted to accomplish. And we're finally in a position to do that. Once that project is complete, if the funding is still there, then we'll probably move over to JP West and work from First up to the park and to get that wide and some sidewalks, because that's another priority route for us. With that, I'll take any questions.
I have a couple. So when does the local fuel tax expire? Is that in 2029?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, are we foreseeing needing to renew that?
I would highly encourage that when that time starts nearing, that we start working on that, yes.
Okay, so one thing I mean, I think these budgets are great, not only for financial accountability, but for some storytelling and building a narrative. I would maybe suggest either in this version for the final version or in next year's budget, we list those projects that the community has really benefited from. So it can quickly be referenced.
Yeah, when that time draws near, my anticipation would be is that would be our ATM topic. And we would have a slideshow with all of the projects, the dollars, each one its cost, what we've accomplished, and tell a very, very thorough tale. That's how we promoted the local fuel tax, is we were at the ATM and several other things, telling the whole story so that the community can understand the need. And so, yes, we will be working on it when the time.
So that might be one we want to start building in 2027. That story.
And going on this 5-year CIP, all the funding is based on this current gas tax. Like you have some funding out there in 2029, 2030, but that would be based on.
The CIP is based on that and that federal exchange, because we know we're going to be getting at least that $100,000 in every year. The state fuel tax basically covers our personnel and operational costs. And then those other two, the local fuel tax and the federal, that's our capital. That's what we save up every few years. We'll do an overlay project when we have enough to justify doing that. If the project's too small, the costs for the project go up. Contractors like to bite into big projects, they'll lower their price and do it by volume. So if we do that and at the $500,000 mark, we get a better deal. Any other questions?
I noticed we got a grant a couple years ago for Safe Route to School. They came out and did a study, basically found that we weren't qualified for any additional.
We don't score well for safe routes. This community is just too wealthy for that. We actually score very poorly on that because of that typically. So that at this time, until the state changes that, and we've had a lot of discussions with them about changing that criteria. I think they do it on free lunch type program or something. I can't remember the criteria that's aligned with, but it's very challenging for communities like us that are small and don't bring in the streets revenue, regardless of the health of the schools, that aligns it, because in the reality it doesn't. So we've had lots of talks with them trying to improve that program. However, the county did do a safe route one and studied the corridors around the schools, and we do have that data. They shared all that with us. So.
Great. Move on then.
All right.
Number 21.
Footpaths. So footpaths is based on 1% of that state gas tax. Historically, we've been using this money towards the sidewalk repair program, which we offer to anybody in the community who has sidewalks that are in dire need of replacement or repair. We will contribute up to $2,000 or 50% of their project, whichever is greater. We have not had a lot of interest in this program in the last couple of years, but we are planning on pitching that one more year. What I highly recommend is if this doesn't move forward over this next year, that we take these funds and go start doing wheelchair replacement ramp replacements throughout the city in advance of pavement overlay projects, because the law won't allow us to do an overlay project without being ADA compliant on the sidewalks. So if this fund continues to grow without expenditures, we need to come up with plan B, and that would be my recommendation. So we're going to hold status quo. We do have our new contract administrator who is very good on social media and things, and she's already been building a program that we're going to get out there and try to help encourage people to do that. We've also talked about raising the limits. Maybe we're going to have to give more with the way things cost nowadays, just to help them out.
I thought I saw increasing the amount.
We did double it. It used to be 1,000. It's at 2 now, and maybe that's just not enough yet. So I can run through the numbers real quick. So the beginning capital is 266,815. Interest is projected at 5,000, which is the same as previous year. The revenue is, like, as I said, the 1%. So it's at 6,600. Given total resources for the fund of 278,415. Materials and services, we only plug in 3,000. That's if we do something with our crews on one of those sidewalks. Capital outlay for the year is 40,000, which is money allocated towards the program, leaving a contingency of 235,415, balancing the budget at 278,415. Any questions?
Good, moving on.
Stormwater drainage fund. So a couple of years ago, we did the master plan update, got our CIPs up to date and worked through the revenues that should be brought in. We adjusted the stormwater fees accordingly. And that has now put this fund into a position where it's functioning. For several years, we were only paying a small portion of costs out of this to build the fund. It's now there, fully developed. So we're pulling for FTEs out of it now officially. We're paying equipment costs out of it. We're using our Vector truck extensively through this, so there's costs there. All of the debris that we haul away from the cleaning the catch basin, so on and so forth, street sweeping, that all comes out of this fund. So with that, I'll start running through the numbers. The beginning cash for this fund right now is $2,746,184, which is up $479,000 from the previous year. That is due to the fact that we have not been doing capital projects as of yet. That is currently in the works, and I'll get on that in just a second. Interest income because of that fund is $80,000, which is up $45,000 from last year. And charges for service for the fund will be projected at $1,110,000, which is up $141,955 from the previous year. Giving total resources of $3,936,184. Personal services for this one is $369,000, which is now up $48,727. As I mentioned earlier, we're adjusting these personnel costs to what our crews are actually doing. They're doing much more storm work now than they used to, so there is an increase in that. Materials and services are up as well at $317,836, which is up $61,000 from the previous year. Once again, as we're doing more work in the stormwater department. Capital outlay, which is primarily we're partnering with the Scappoose Bay Watershed on some more layback projects. This summer, we're going to be doing a layback. If all of you are familiar with Veterans Park, we've been working on the riparian boundary of the creek. We're going to be doing that on the Concomly side along the park there. That'll be our big project for this year. We're also in talks with an engineer to design 3 stormwater projects over on the east side of town. As many of you who travel through town realize over here, most of these streets flood during the rain events. We're working to improve that with this funds as well.
I have a question there.
Yeah.
When you redo the sidewalk from Vine and all these projects, is some of that stormwater
Yes.
tie-ins? And
Yep. One of the big areas, well, we have 2 things, is we have a DEQ UIC retrofit project. DEQ mandated us several years to make some improvements to our stormwater system. We haven't had the funds until now. So we're going to be working on that as one of them. The other, like I said, over 2 blocks over here on Second, floods extensively. If you go down Second here, you'll see it flood extensively down towards that. And so we're going to, those are our primary kickoff projects, and then we'll move on from there. The contingency will still be left at $1,993,868, balancing the budget at $3,936,184. Questions on the storm?
Oh, so Dave, do we need a line item for a comprehensive watershed study?
We would.
That would be my advice. Because it relates to so many different things, bridges across the creek, new development, we're talking about the flooded area. Without that comprehensive watershed study, it's operating in the dark. So I think we really need that one.
Okay. I can look and see, we could look at doing that through the capital. We'll have to see if that aligns and what that scope looks like. We also do budget engineering money for this fund, so I can talk with Ben about what that might look like.
And that's good. I mean, this would make more sense in the stormwater. I mean, could we have the transportation study coming up too? I mean, could have anything to do with?
No, I would want to learn more about what Joel's talking about, because some of that data may be represented in our stormwater master plan. So what we would need to do is see what that scope would look like over and above, and see what additional stormwater work would need to be done.
Council President Miller?
Thank you. Dave, you mentioned that there's a lot more storm drainage work going on. Can you touch on that just a little bit?
Are you talking about the maintenance side of it that I mentioned, or just on the capital?
Well, when you're going through the line items here, you mentioned that there's a lot more storm drainage work going on, which I believe was articulating why.
Yeah, well, it's both. So maintenance wise, now that we have a true stormwater fund and can staff it, we're doing more catch basin cleaning, dry well cleaning, pipe cleaning. We now purchased a TV truck. The TV truck is going to start doing analyzing of CCTV of all the pipes. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be doing there. And then these capital projects are new as well. So does that help?
Yes, thank you.
So Dave, is the contractual and professional, you said last in another, somebody said it was attorneys. So are we paying that much more for attorneys, or what covers under line item 230?
That is attorneys. Let's see here. I've got a little more detail.
And that also includes those other costs, like a lot of times, software and stuff like that. They've
We-
gone back to the departments.
Yeah, we used
From
to have
general fund.
comparative, and we don't anymore. So let me look here real quick.
Pretty hard to compare, so. Because it did go up a lot, but so did all of them went up.
So 13,000 of that is partnership with our IGA with Scappoose Bay Watershed. There's 6,000 for the attorney. And then there's 30,000 identified for stormwater contracts. And the big one is 50,000 for contract engineering, because the CDC's want to do a Public Works Design Standard update. That's the big ticket item that jumped this one up, is for that work.
Oh, so that's why you want to do a different line, line item for engineering? Is that why you were saying?
We don't have an engineering line item, so it falls under this category, and that's where this is allocated. So 50,000 of that 230 is just to do design standard update.
Well, I like your idea that it probably should be a different line item. I don't know. Because it's, I don't know, just a lot. I mean, there's a lot in that just one line item that we can see.
Yeah, but it fluctuates. There's not always a dedicated engineering cost, so.
Right,
It's all,
typically,
it's all just contractual professional based on the year.
I was gonna say typically with accounting, you just group similar type of things together and then we have a breakdown for it. So I mean, a lot of these line items will have quite a few things in like publications. We don't make a separate line item per like computer software unnecessarily. I mean, we can, but it's usually,
It's,
Yeah.
Right,
I
gotta
mean,
go with
there's
common.
20 items identified in there that even are very generic of that, so.
Well, thank you for identifying them.
Good there?
But I was just gonna say in response to Joel's questions about the study though, that would be something I would recommend. Yeah, you could probably look in one of your other line items. It's not currently a council priority, but to be discussed obviously with the council, if that's something to designate staff time towards this year, or if that's gonna be next year as a future line item. But that's something we can continue to work on as we identify if that is going to be a project.
Right, but it replaces so many things we're doing. And the reality is that what we're dealing with is old data, old studies, and there was nothing comprehensive has ever been done. Scappoose Bay Watershed Council really wants to have this done, having instrumentation in the creek, so we can judge thermal gradients for examining the habitat. There's so many elements of this that we need to address, and if we don't get started thinking about that, it's to keep on kicking the can down the road.
Well, I agree with that. It was just, we have limited staff time, limited resources with council priorities and other projects that we try to designate which one, we put the budget together with what the council and staff current projects are. That could be a future project. It could still be just a year. It's just, that would be a future discussion that was not current in this because it has not been identified as something that we need to put over other projects at this time.
But anyway, like you said,
Right.
the line item in there, at least we have a basis for it to go forward.
Is that something we could partner with county and watershed and
Probably.
St. Helen? I mean, is there any groups that?
Probably not, because this is community specific. And that's what needs to, that's what we need to address. We should have done it years ago, but we haven't.
Joel, what was the dollar amount ish?
Well, it was, the last bid was 108,000, but it would be desirable to have instrumentation in the group as well. So I would kind of phase it in. So first get the pictures of what we're facing. And watershed council would really like to have the instrumentation, so they can judge the thermal gradients, and their habitat restoration and so forth. But there's just a lot of elements to that need to be there.
And that study would probably fall under the contractual professional, because it'd be contracting that out. So if, once again, if that did become a priority project, we could pull it out of our contingency. There's 1.9 million in the contingency that we could, yeah.
I think we're trying to gather thermo data and stuff, though. It would be beneficial to bring in Scappoose Bay Watershed and Columbia Soil and Water. Because Columbian Soil Water already has access to some of that equipment and is doing some of that work, because I've sat in presentations on E. coli studies and things where they do have water temperature data. So it's collective. I just think we need to work with the other agencies to partner and pull something together, maybe a bigger picture. Yeah.
Excuse me, Ben, would that be something that we can look into getting partially like a grant for?
Yeah, I mean, if there are grants out there for that, we'd have to look into it. I'm not 100% sure. But there probably is a grant out there for something similar to that.
Okay, continuing on to stormwater drainage, SDC.
Yep. So SDCs, as you all know, are the contribution by homes that are being built towards future development for growth. So any of these funds can only be used for capacity adding projects. Working capital carryover for the stormwater SDC fund is 488,209, which is up 67,759 from the previous year. Interest is projected at 15,000. SDCs are projected to come in at 44,167, which is down 42,000 from the previous year. Current year resources then are at 59,167, giving a total resources of 547,376. Capital outlay is budgeted at 500, which is 300 more than last year. We don't have anything specifically identified for that yet until we get the design work done on these projects. And then we'll be able to use some of those funds. That's why it's there, just earmarked for projects, but we don't have it set to a contract yet. Transfers are at 2,208, which is admin fee transferred over from the money that comes in. There's a portion kicked back to the general fund to help cover admin costs. Contingency is 45,168, balancing the budget at 547,376. Questions? All right, moving on.
Continue on.
Okay, street SDC. Same concept, contributions from development. Working capital carryover of 1,233,125, which is up 295,594. Development charges projected for the year at 277,608. Interest is projected at 30,000, giving a total resources of 1,540,733. Capital outlay for the year is 1.2 million. This fund is eligible to be spent towards the Vine Street project, 50% of it. So we're allocating money towards that project for that. Transfers to the general fund of 13,880 and a contingency of 326,853. Balance the budget at 1.54733. So once again, big expenses are going to the Vine Street project when that goes to construction, which won't be until spring, summer of next year. We'll be in the design stage effective now till probably January. So
This budget pays for the completion of that project. It will be
pays for a
done,
portion of it, pays for up to 50%.
but it will all, I mean, the whole budget though, it will be done by the end of this budget.
No, more than likely, we're going to be doing the work through next summer because of the impact of the schools. So we'll be doing utility work and things while the kids are in school, but the major sidewalks, paving work, we're going to try to align with next summer. So I would imagine there's going to be a small amount that's going to trickle into the next fiscal year just to wrap up the project into the fall. So it'll be a split season. Most of the expenses will be in this fiscal year, but there'll be some trickle over.
When do these housing developments pay the street SDCs? Like, have they already all three of them
At
paid?
the time they pull their permits to
Yeah.
build.
So this is money we have. It's not, expected. I mean, the 277,000 is expected for out of new houses, so.
You said this was eligible to be used for that sidewalk project.
Is 50% of it.
50% of it is?
Yeah.
Could it be used for any sidewalk project or is there something?
Capacity adding, yes, it can. And we have. So when we did the sidewalk improvements on Old Portland Road a handful of years ago and things, same thing. We applied 50% of the SDCs. The SDCs are a little bit challenging to use. They're a curse and a blessing because if you don't have the capacity adding, then you can't apply them. Well, we're not really building a lot of new streets because when the new streets come in, they're built by a developer and we're not contributing to those costs anyways. So that's why it's good that these sidewalk projects are eligible because that's how we can best align them to use them. Questions on that?
Let's continue on. Park SDC,
Park SDCs. All right.
page 94.
All right, Parks SDCs, total resources for Parks SDCs, $416,875. That includes the working capital carryover of $277,749 with $7,000 of interest. And for the SDC charges for the two subdivisions coming in is $132,126. Expenditures for this fund is through capital outlay is $400,000, which is marked for the Smith Road Veterans Extension project. With $6,606 in interest for a contingency of $10,269.
So do you anticipate then spending $400,000 on the park in this budget? I mean, when we have stuff ground dug and. Or is it
Once again,
budget?
just like the sidewalk project, I think it's gonna be a split year. We're gonna allocate for it. But we're gonna be through the duration of next summer. By the time we get the design done, we're gonna be bidding late winter, spring, going to construction, doing the dirt work during the dry months, probably paving and things into the fall. So it's gonna be a carryover.
There might be some.
We're going right in the middle of it again.
Next June, July, there could be some.
There'll be construction activities hopefully going on at that point, but it won't be done by any means by the end of this fiscal year.
Good. Hey, 26. 26, pool fund.
The pool fund we always joke about, page 96. So this is when you only just have to see this now for a couple more years. Because I got the last little bit of, ending dollars out this last year or this year. So the remaining money, of course, we talked a little bit about the 48,000 that we cannot spend. But the other funds that were in there, 9844, we transferred it over to the general fund to parks, basically. So it's going to the park projects. So that's pretty much done. So nothing is going to accrue. This is going to be kind of like that PEG fee fund that's going to kind of just eventually roll off. So get it off our books. So you still have to look at it for a couple more years.
There's potentially a new hotel coming in, you use that to rent it for the city a couple of times throughout the summer. Yeah.
Rent their pool.
So, okay, and I also do unemployment insurance fund. This is Fund 87. We are self-insured for unemployment. We don't pay the state anything for it. So if we do lay somebody off or shortly after I came, there was somebody that we didn't lay them off, but they quit, but then they got laid off their next job. So we ended up coming back and hitting us for it. So, we do have this, it's very healthy. It's got good reserves. And so, we have $100,000, reserved for this. We haven't paid anything for a couple of years out on the unemployment fund, but we pay basically all the unemployment costs if we lay somebody off. So we don't pay the state their amount. So, the fund we always budget $50,000. We haven't spent that much, since I've been here. We've just spent a few $1,000s since I've been here. And You know, it does earn interest every year, and we just are rolling it over. And because the fund is in is so healthy, we aren't having to take money from payroll out of all the other funds for the payroll cost to add to this fund. So basically, this fund being healthy is keeping our costs down, you know, for all of the other payroll, you know, funds, everybody else's payroll. Because we haven't put any money in here from the other departments since I've been here. So it's healthy and just rolling along. The interest is keeping it going. So that's the unemployment insurance.
How does that like show that you hire good people? Or we don't hire too many people, we have to lay off, or
That's a lot of it. is We just have, yeah.
management, and so we haven't had to use.
It's good management, right? I think we want to think that, whether it's true or not. We're a good place to work.
A lot
Yeah,
of
we
people
are a
have
good
been
place
here
to
a
work.
long time, and a lot of
Yeah.
locals that have grown up here.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so back to utility water fund. I want to try to get done with the regular, we have to turn off the recording for the urban renewal. We'll take a few minute break there, if that's okay. But up to tab number 28, page 100. There's utility water.
I do.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for
Wake
being
up.
here and part of the community and spending your time with us. Working capital carryover for water is almost 2.7 million, interest 108,000, charges for services 2.7 million. Intergovernmental is 350,000, long-term debt crew proceeds is 2.5 million for total resource of 5.6 million. Total resources, sorry, 8.3 million. Personnel services, 1.3 million. Materials and services, just over 1 million. Capital outlay, 4.2 million. There's a couple loans down there. Leaves a contingency of 1.2 million. Total expenditures, 8.3. Most of the materials service items are pretty much the same thing we've talked about. These fees and subscriptions, that shifting of funds has happened. Capital outlay projects, most everything is tied to the ongoing projects, the reservoir and the well at Miller.
Typically, charges for services is the water bill.
Right.
From
There's a meter fee and then there's commodity fee.
and intergovernmental, some of this come from, this, urban renewal to pay for the reservoir.
Urban
The-
renewal is kicking in 21% towards the reservoir, but you won't see that money anywhere in this budget. It's tied directly to the paying the contractor out of that fund, so it's not carrying through here. Anything intergovernmental is pretty much all the ARPA, and then there's long-term debt proceeds, which are self-explanatory. That's the loans that we've taken out through the Special Public Works Fund to fund these. So we have one loan on the reservoir, and we just took out a loan on the basalt well, which we're getting ready to sign contracts on soon.
And speaking of ARPA, all the deadlines, all the reporting, we've done good on all of them, and
Yeah,
completed
the
them.
only one that's still lingering, which has almost been exhausted, is for the basalt well. I think we're down to about 400,000 left to spend on that, and I anticipate with the new well driller that we'll be cutting that one here real soon and closing that out. The one thing that I want to mention on the water fund, though, is this is the fund that we're watching the closest. The revenues are actually down, and they've been trending down or flat with people conserving water and things, and the rates not going up as drastic. So it's indexed right now at a 2.5 over the construction cost. And the construction cost index have been down, so we're only coming up at 2.5. Well, the cost of living, I mean, just our personnel costs have been going up at over 3%. Health insurance has been going up 7 to 10%. So we're trending in a downward negative pattern right now. And so we will probably be coming to council within the next year to talk about this and come up with a strategy of how we want to address it. So stay tuned on that one.
And your budget is down a little on charges, even with the new houses coming online. kind of forecast for that.
Yeah, we forecast for that. Yep.
When
But
did-
I mean, we've asked people to conserve all along and they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
It's gonna impact your bottom dollar too, so.
When were the rates changed? Remind me. Dave.
When do they?
When did they change? Do we
Well,
have,
they change every year.
right?
So we follow the index every year,
Which is how much?
How much?
From one year to the next,
2.5%.
2.5%. Okay.
There was a year because of the construction cost index where it went up 7.2. That was our big spike, but then the very next year it reversed. It went to 2.7. So it hovers at that 3 range, give or take, but the last few years it's been down to half of under. I think last year the index was 1.6, if memory serves me correct. So we defaulted to the 2.5, which the current resolution has as the minimum. But once again, 2.5 isn't covering when your costs are 3+. And the chemicals and things that we're paying to operate the plant are increasing like 10% every year, so.
If everything goes right, what's your best guess on when we would take water out of the salt well? When?
Fall,
Of this year?
yeah. Yeah, I anticipate with the new driller that's on site that they'll bottom out within the next month or two and start to test it and make sure, and then we'll have to go to bid for a contractor to install the pumps and tie it into the plant, so probably fall, winter, the latest.
Okay. Water SCC fund. 104.
Water SCC is carryover 210,000, interest 6,000, system development charges 552,000. A transfer in utility fund 100,000. Total resources 868,000. Capital improvements 141,000. That's the basalt well, and then there's the loans. Contingency 423,000. Questions on
Could
SC?
you just remind us, like, the loans that we have, what are we have loans on?
We're still paying on the line that goes up the canyon. And the capital outlay is actually,
Miller.
there might be still some on that too, yeah. In the capital outlay, the 149.92 though is actually development fees. So when the Charles T. Parker properties annexed in, the city received money through land use decisions that contributed towards the reservoir and towards the well. That 140 is their contribution towards the well. They've already paid out the money to the reservoir as we're completing that, so. Pretty much the SDC fund is just paying back debt through the revenues it's receiving other than that 149.92.
Stop there one day.
Are the SDC, the charges, are those just like per unit that's coming online, or that's all it is? Doesn't matter how big the thing is, or?
It's per meter size that they're buying into. The bigger the meter, the higher the SDC.
So like an apartment, how big kind of meter, is that 1 meter?
Can be. Yeah. Depending on the complex of how many different buildings. If it's a complex with more, then usually there's 1 meter per building, but it's typically what we see.
Standard 3/4 1 inch for water is about 10,000 and wastewater is about 5,500.
Then if for parks, it's just per unit, like for the parks SDC, about $1,500 or.
Yeah, I believe it's broken out to by single family versus like multifamily unit. It's a little less.
Okay, utility wastewater fund, tab 30, page 107.
Wastewater fund has a carryover of 4.2 million, 144,000 in interest. 3.1 million in charges for services. Intergovernmental revenue of 100,000. Long-term debt proceeds of 3 million. Total resources of 10.6 million. Personnel is at 1.3, material service 972,000, capital outlay 3.4 million. There's the old loan in there from 2010 and the new payment coming online. Total expenditures 10.6 million. And the same story here within the material service. Contract professionals allocation and dues, fees, subscriptions. Our electrical, it's going to be a shift. Electrical and chemicals with the new additions phase 1 project. Yeah. Any questions on that one?
So phase 1, I mean, it did a lot that you're able to operate. And then phase 2 will be,
Phase 2 is a new clarifier, a new aerobic digester, and new offices and effluent line to the one channel.
you're using all that now, but old. And then
Right.
we'll phase 2 would be the upgrade.
And we are, the next couple months, will be online. This week is a big week. There's lots of equipment that's being tested and coming online, electrical transfers, and computer upgrades.
Couple things I'd like to point out on this fund is the beginning cash. Yes, it's extremely large, but over the past 5 years, we've been raising the rate 7% per year. This will be the last year of that. That's anticipation of making payments on the $20 million loan that's going to begin next year. So that big balance is going to start to dwindle relatively quickly moving forward. So this fund is right now healthy, but it won't be as healthy as we move forward as we start to pay back the debt, because we've been planning to pay that debt. And that's why you'll see some money in there, so. And we will be coming to you next Monday to talk about a new wastewater rate structure. If you remember, back in November, we came to you, council, and talked about those new commercial rates and things. We heard what you said about the multifamily, and so now we've got a plan to come forward and present to you. Sweet. So stay tuned on that.
I've been signing some big checks over the last year for the WWTP. Like those we pay along as we go on some of that. Is that coming from ARPA dollar, or it's not part of the loan?
It's pretty much all one. So that project was only eligible for ARPA in the amount of 2.2 million of the nearly $20 million that we spent. Well, I take that back. 16.8 million towards the plant itself. And then we had the close to $2 million that did have ARPA money, half of it for the bio dryer. But that project's been complete for over a year. This past year has just been on the wastewater plant, which has been other than the 2.2, been going to the loan.
Okay.
And then urban renewal, when we get to that, Carol will touch on that it has a percentage allocated towards it. And urban renewal will make the first few payments of that loan until its eligibility is gone or the funds were available, depending on how the taxes come in. And then after that, then ratepayers will be paying those loans moving forward. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay.
I do have a question. What does it mean when something is like more than 100% paid, like 140? Is that, I've seen that a couple of times.
Where are you at?
When let's see, when you guys, percentage of allocated time, is it 2 people?
Yes, 2 people. Yes.
Okay, because it's 7%. Okay, I wanted to clarify, because this is worker one.
Yep. 140. So yeah, 2 people at 70%.
Okay,
Yeah, or
just wanted.
0.4 whatever of one person, half person.
And some of these are like, even if it's the same utility and different funds, they still the same amount on both funds. See how you guys break it down, the percentages. Okay,
And there too, on page 107, you have 25, 26 twice.
Okay, you're right.
But again, 7.5 FTE, no
26, 27.
equals out, but all the percentages might be different. I'll fix that. Right. We do 30 wastewater, okay? Wastewater SPC. 31. Yeah.
We have about 230,000 in carryover, 20,000 in interest, and On this one, you can see how the SDCs are actually split. 60,000 reimbursement, 228,000 extra capacity, and 15% for admin fees. Total there of 324,000. Total resources 554,000. Capital outlays 500,000. Transfers of 15,230. Leaves a contingency of 39,336. Those are all going towards phase 1 project.
Okay. More questions? So tab 32, page 113, excuse me, are the loans that we have out?
Yeah, I decided to put those back in this year so you could see what loans were in there. We used to have a debt service fund. But I thought it would be beneficial and I pulled these numbers out pretty quickly. You know, took them off the audit, last year's audit, and calculated what was in this year. So it just kind of tells you where we are and what the rates are on
I know.
for debt. So,
That first one then, for a point of clarity, is the one that we amended to the 20 million. So that's no longer 6.4, it's now 20
oh,
at the
okay.
1.88. So that is a phenomenal interest rate that we do still have on that. So
That's why we raised it, right? So, yeah, that's good point. Because like I say, I
I'm
pulled
sorry.
off last year's audit. So
So should the zero be 20 million? Is that what you're saying? I didn't catch that.
the balance hasn't been finalized is why, I mean, this is the first I've seen this table too, but we haven't closed it. It's still an open account that we're drawing against.
Ah.
So once we've said that's it, then that will be able to give you a hard number.
Okay.
But it does have a total amount available of 20 million.
20 million, okay.
Do these have a date of when they were paid off? Or when they,
Yeah, she could add
I mean,
that.
they're
I can
somewhere
add
down the
that.
road.
They're amortized out, so yeah.
yeah, we can't get it
Cool.
obviously the first one, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bear with me. This was my first shot at this, so I figured
Nice to see,
Put something
especially
on.
when some are expiring or.
and the page 114, section 33 is just the listing of the transfers in and out of each fund. And, they do go in. I always put the little asterisks by the SDC funds. In the past, they used to transfer whatever money it said they were going to transfer, and we don't do that anymore. If we don't get the money, we don't transfer it. So nothing gets transferred to the general fund unless we receive the money for admin fees. You found me a typo.
Budgeted transfers from SDC change that.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. She, or just, I just spell checked this document too. I'm surprised I didn't catch that.
Work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Still works.
I'll go through the glossary one at a time.
That's it.
We're good there. The Council President Miller.
Yeah, some of the dialogue related to debt services there I couldn't understand. What was the error? Did I hear that there was an error on the debt services page 113?
There was a spelling error on the bottom. It said budgeted transfers pro instead of from.
Okay, thank you.
And then that was on the transfer debt service. She'll add a column maybe to say when it expire.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get that in this year,
Yeah.
but we'll add it next year for sure.
Okay, so we are done going through everything. If anybody wants to have any more questions, and if not, if we can look for an approval, a recommendation approval of this budget to provide to the council with any updates or changes that we had talked about. Tyler, do you have any of them down that you remember?
Yeah, I just emailed them to you and Susan.
Okay, Susan will have these, but taking notes, page 43, we're correcting position count error for public works positions as flagged by the public works director. Page 44, footnote about restricted funds came up when discussing the pool fund that Counselor Haugen raised. Page 56, approval of drug detention dog pending further conversations and approvals about the program prior to any expenditure. I feel fine putting it in the budget, but like Mr. Miller would like to talk about it moving forward. Page 64, incorrect wages for community development director. Does that mean also department salaries on page 65 will be needed as updated as well?
I believe so.
Okay.
They come from a totally different spot, by the way,
Okay. Confirm all of
It
them.
was just a table amendment.
just the
Okay.
table.
Correcting the negative numbers on page 76. Page 78, potential typo.
Okay.
Got that.
There's a few.
Page 107, believe, utility wash and wastewater fund.
I wish I could blame it on my handwriting, but I don't think I can there. Does everything make sense in those notes, Joe?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think I had an error there, just a question about, I had folded a page. Debt services spelling error on page 113. Fires, and then just somewhere, is there a way to qualify? Some of the numbers look a lot different this year versus next, but it's because of intergovernmental transfers, you know, Stan, is there a way to put that somewhere that transfers, some of the big changes they're not really changes, they're just because we transfer, we were standard operating procedure.
Trying to figure out how I would do that.
It will disappear pretty quick unless.
Yeah,
we do.
just as long as we
The-
keep bringing it up
The
here.
trend will become there. The other thing that was not listed on here was the $400,000 adjustment for the police
Yes.
department.
And the 399,814, did you say?
I'm gonna put it as 400.
Grant for the radio. And maybe at some time you could have a page where like changes or something changes from last year, you know,
Okay,
anything
I've
big.
done that.
And we like potential purchase property or this way we transferred money might have changed something.
Yeah, I was gonna, sorry, I'll raise my hand and wait my
Okay.
turn.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna bring up, somewhere in the very beginning, I think it would be helpful just to have a summary of, additional expenses for the proposed budget. Just related to, I wrote out notes and now I lost my notes. But something just like, additional FTEs, additional equipment, just large items. If we had a summary right up front of what those major changes are in the budget, that would be helpful, I think.
Interesting.
And then obviously.
Let me see if I can figure out how to do that, okay?
Let's take it out of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't.
This year.
Yeah, we didn't have very many this year, so I don't think it'll be a heavy lift, but just having that, you know, right up front. It may be even something that Ben can just include in his opening letter.
When I do open my regulation book every year up front, yeah, here in red are the changes or something different, just so you made aware. And then on page 4, the LOC, where we were one of the first founding members of LOC in 1925. Anybody else have any other changes or things they'd like to potentially vote on?
I would just go and make sure that some of the charts were wrong, like the years.
Yeah, we'll
the
make clerical adjustments.
where it dropped.
Okay, so noting that, I'm looking for an approval of tonight's budget. Buddy,
I'll offer a motion to approve the budget with the changes discussed.
Counselor Holmes, budget committee member, makes a motion to accept 2026, 2027 budget with amendments or changes noted. Any
And I'll
seconds?
I will second that. And Mr. Mayor, if we can just clarify the process now, just get it on the record so the public understands if they watch this video.
Yes, the discussion, we have a first and a second to accept this budget. Now, this budget will be recommended to council with the changes, and they'll bring it back within the next month or so
In June, yeah.
in June, and then we'll revisit it with our public hearing. They'll be open to the public, which will discuss any changes, and then the council will vote on approval of the budget. So this is approving the recommendation, approving to the council.
And the final numbers are always published in the paper also when we publish for the budget.
Any more discussion? Anything else, Council President?
I'm good. Thank you. Job well done again to city staff. Thank you very much for your work on this. I know it's a large endeavor and I'm always impressed with the way that we run our budget process every year.
Yes, I echo that. I've seen a couple other cities and it's been very fortunate. You guys have done a really good job making this understandable and thorough. And we've been very fortunate to be in a good position where we are. So appreciate it. And that's thanks to all of you guys for sure. You guys have all been here a lot longer than I have. So thank you.
Thank you to the budget committee members too.
Yes.
Your guys' work and your time should be noted as well.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will adjourn this budget committee meeting. And in 5 minutes at 8:10, we'll start up real quick the urban renewal budget committee meeting, and that should go quick.